Yes, what's good guys? It's Joshua here. Welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'll be taking you guys through how use the epoxy foreign contractor can be consistently closing high ticket jobs through the power of follow-up basically. So I'm going to just be laying an emphasis on how follow-up is so powerful in your business and how you as the epoxy foreign business needs to be implementing professional follow-up systems within epoxy flooring business to ensure that they're not struggling on a per month basis in terms of closing high ticket epoxy jobs. So this is actually a video that is going to be showing you on how to be having a consistent strategy in ensuring that you're closing consistently high ticket epoxy jobs. So it's not like on month one you're basically struggling, on month two you're you're doing well, and then month three you're struggling again. So this video is going to show you how you can be ensuring that you're having constant and consistent success in terms of your of closing high ticket epoxy jobs on a monthly basis. And so in this video, we'll be discovering why consistent follow-up is the critical difference actually between contractors who are struggling and those who consistently close profitable high-value projects, just as I mentioned. So in this video, we'll be covering why most epoxy jobs with deals worth of 2k to 10k are lost out of the first quote, not actually because of the pricing, right, but because of silence. And also we will also try and be looking at the real reason prospects actually ghost you and why it's not rejection, how professional follow-up positions you as the safest choice, not the cheapest option. So we want to ensure that you actually are the most trustworthy in your entire market or in your entire city or town. We'll also be looking at what the difference between annoying follow-up and value-driven follow-up. So we're not just trying to be pushy or desperate. We're trying to lead these people with value, and we'll later look into that. And also just how consistent follow-up stabilizes cash flow and adds feast or famine months, just as I was mentioning, because some people tend to have these manual follow-up processes that lead them to having inconsistent months in terms of their profit. So in month one, they're doing well, in month two, they're struggling, in month three, just becomes a cycle loop of a vicious cycle of inconsistency and all that. And then eventually we'll be looking at the simple follow-up framework that epoxy pros, the top epoxy pros who have professional follow-up systems within their business, how they use these professional frameworks basically to close more jobs without more leads, right? And then how automation and structure remove follow-up from your mental load while increasing closing rates. Now, guys, we just need to realize that there's a critical gap in your sales process if you're an epoxy flooring business who's having this specific problem, because we need to realize that 80% of the sales actually require 5+ follow-ups. And guess what? Over half of the epoxy flooring contractors only follow up after one or two attempts, and after that, they tend to give up. So most high ticket sales need at least 5 touch points, often closer to 8 attempts. Look at that. But most, or not even most, over half of the epoxy flooring contractors abandon prospects just one or two attempts, right? And then they later fail to understand why they're not getting consistent, uh, profitable months, right? And so just even looking at the epoxy average deal value, high ticket epoxy projects, of course, range from $2,000 to 10k per job, right? And even just missing one lead, or even just losing one lead, or offering your lead to your competitor on a silver platter, which eventually is a result of not having professional follow-up systems, can cost you thousands and thousands of revenues that would have not been lost were you to implement professional follow-up systems within your epoxy flooring business. Now, the disconnect between required follow-up and actual effort represents a massive opportunity, because every abundant lead is actually potential revenue left on the table for your competitors to claim, for your competitors who have professional follow-up systems on how they can follow up on the leads, right? So we must just first understand the fear. Why is this? Where is this fear of following up? Where is it coming from? Where is it rooted on? Where is it rooted from, right? Because we need to understand that many contractors struggle with persistent follow-up due to common fears that hold them back from closing leads or deals, basically. So the hesitation stems from basically misconceptions, perceived or perceived misconceptions about professional communication. So most of them actually fear of being perceived as pushy. They don't want to seem so desperate. They don't want to appear pushy to their potential leads. Most of them fear annoying prospects with too much contact, right? Most of them fear losing the sale entirely through persistence. So persistence is what brings or eventually bears result. But most of them just don't want it because it's so painful. It's so painful to them in terms of following up on a lead. They don't want to seem annoying. They don't want to seem pushy. They don't want to go through that painful or that valley of despair moment, right? And actually, another fear is they misinterpret silence as rejection, whereas they just don't understand that most people, or if people are busy. People in general are busy. People have lives. People have families and all that. So most of them are not rejecting you as the epoxy flooring business, as the epoxy flooring contractor. Most of them have just busy lives and they just need to be reminded. So someone can fill a lead form showing or raising their hand they're really interested with this service, but eventually they get caught up with the day with the life basically, and they eventually get to forget. So it's your responsibility as the epoxy flooring contractor to ensure that you have professional follow-up systems that actually are going to get these people back to their initial spark, the initial spark of interest that they had in terms of desiring your service as the epoxy flooring contractor. So the reality is this silence doesn't mean no, basically. Prospects are often busy, undecided, or overwhelmed by so much opinions. There's a wealth or an abundance of options, basically. So high ticket projects are investments. That is also another reason why you should not be if you are an epoxy flooring contractor who's fear based in terms of following up. You need to realize that high ticket projects are investments, that they're not just impulse purchases. So these people need time and more information. So we'll later be looking into how we are you as the epoxy free contractor can be ensuring that you nurture these people, those who have this common objection of they need time to think and all that. That is why we mentioned that we need to be having value driven follow up. We're not just pushing ourselves. We're not just acting desperate to these guys. So the mindset shift, follow up is professional, not pestering. It's actually the bridge between the indecision and action that demonstrates care, reliability, and expertise. Now, just look at the cost of neglecting follow up. The financial impact is the potential loss of a 2 to 10K deal on average is what you as a possible flooring contractor has to bear if you eventually manage, or if you're not able to reach out or follow up to these guys. That is the amount you're losing. Because if you're losing a deal that was worth 2K, look at the long term effect it has, even in terms of bringing you referrals back, because the client you're servicing right now will later, get to promote you later in the future of how you made the wonderful epoxy floors. And so if you look at the LTV of just losing a lead or just allowing a lead to fall through the cracks and handing them over to your competitors, it eventually trickles down to thousands and thousands of revenue lost just for you as the epoxy flooring business. So it's not just about even wasting your time. Basically, it also trickles down to the financial loss that you're losing in terms of allowing these leads to fall through the cracks. So if, for instance, you a 10K deal sees your ad on Meta or on Facebook, and they raise your hand, okay, we need this service, we need a commercial epoxy floor done, a 10K deal worth of the project, and you don't have the professional follow-up systems to get to follow up with these leads. Look at the long-term effect or the long-term impact, the long-term financial impact that has. That's thousands and thousands of revenue lost. Now, skipping follow-ups here means leaving high-value deals to competitors who simply show up consistently, because if you don't follow up on these guys, you're basically telling them, we don't really have the space to accommodate you guys, or we are not professional enough in delivering the service that you guys need from us. So what do these guys do? They look for other options, because just as we said, there's an abundance of options You're not the only epoxy flooring contractor. There's so many epoxy flooring businesses. So if they don't feel valued, if these leads don't feel valued, they eventually look for other options. Of course, it's easy. So you're basically handing them over to your competitors within your town or within your area. And so this is just it. So it's not just about the time that is wasted, about the resources that is wasted. This eventually draws or trickles down to what is important for you as the business, which is ensuring that you're profitable on a month to month basis. Apart from that, we also look at pipeline problems, right? Inconsistent close rates create unpredictable revenue. So you're having feast or famine sales cycles. So today you guys have a 50% close rate. The next day you're having a 15% close rate. The next month you're having a 30% close rate. So it becomes this inconsistent vicious cycle, right? So this eventually leads to relying on luck instead of having a strategy, so making business planning impossible. So guys, if you're not actually following up professionally, basically you are ruining a reputation. So lack of communication signals disorganization or disinterest. So you're basically signaling or telling these guys that you don't have the professional systems, or rather you don't have the systems in place to follow up professionally to ensure that the leads that are coming in, that your customers, the potential customers that are coming in, are well attended to, right? And you get to understand what they need, the type of garage they need, the type of epoxy floor they need for their garage, or what they basically need, right? Their specific needs tied to them raising their hand. We need your service. We've seen your ad, and we need this and this, right? So basically signaling. If you don't follow up professionally, you're basically telling them, or you're basically showing yourself. You're showing off yourself to the market that you guys are disorganized and you're basically disinterested. You're not even. I hate to say this, but you're not really serious enough in how you're approaching the business, right? So on the other hand, consistent follow-up is what builds professionalism. So if you are quick to follow up with these leads, a lead comes in, and within 30 to 60 seconds, you guys reach super fast to the leads. These guys feel valued, right? They feel valued, and this is what actually makes leads the lead to appointment rate basically skyrocket and jump to higher rates, basically, because these guys feel valued. They feel like you guys value them, and eventually they will not have this time gap, or this time that is left between them, between you reaching to them, and them, them showing interest again. Because what you need to realize is, if you eventually waste a lot of time, if you waste a lot of time in reaching out to these leads, we need to realize that today's leads in today's market, these guys need instant response. They need instant follow-up. So if you tend to dilly dally and wait and take a lot of time in terms of reaching out to them, they eventually reach out. There's so many options. They'll say, okay, these guys, they just seem not, they seem not interested at all, so let me just reach out to epoxy flooring business so and so within San Antonio and all that. At least they can do it at a much cheaper price and all that. So at this level, they even start to compete, or they even start to negotiate on price and all that. But if you tend to tend to reach out to your leads consistently at a super speed, these guys are going to eventually they're eventually going to raise your value to this level, because they're going to say, okay, these guys are professional in what they're doing. So even in terms of competing with the price, they really won't even try to negotiate. So whether you are even offering them an epoxy garage floor for even 3k, for what 3k of a deal, they eventually are going to buy into the service, because they've seen, if you can do this, if you can be so better, or if you can be so good at even reaching out at this small thing, which is reaching out, then of course you're going to be eventually good or better. Eventually going to deliver value and deliver the service at a quality level, right? And that is the epoxy flow. So consistent follow-ups is what builds professionalism, credibility, and distinguishes you actually from your competitors. So you're not this is what gives you the competitive edge as a epoxy flooring contractor. Now we need to take, or we need to treat follow up through this simple analogy, the garden analogy. So here we'll be looking at how follow-up builds trust and loyalty. So think of your leads. Basically, just try and think of your leads as seeds requiring consistent care to flourish. Leads are the seeds. These are the initial inquiries with potential, right? These are the leads that saw your ad on Facebook and they raised your hand. Okay, we need this epoxy floor done on our garage. We need this done on our on our driveway. Basically, we need this done on our kitchen, right? So leads, we need to treat the leads as seeds. These are the initial inquiries with potential, right? Follow up is water and sunlight. Beg your pardon on that. Follow up is water and sunlight. So this is the regular touch points that nurture growth. The results are a flourishing business. These are the long-term relationships and referrals that you eventually get. Just as I was telling you guys initially, we need to understand that you're not just you're not just offering this service for one time. If you eventually give a quality service, and eventually this starts from you consistently following up, and the speed to lead, s- basically reaching out to these leads at a fast rate, these guys are going to feel valued just even from the beginning, and even to you delivering the epoxy floor. These guys are eventually going to be so impressed with their service, and they won't even think twice in terms of referring you to their friends, their families. If 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 they if they eventually want someone, if they're eventually looking for a business, epoxy flooring business that can give quality, or that can make quality epoxy installs, they're not even going to blink twice. You're going to stay top on mind because of how professional you are in terms of follow up, in terms of engaging them with the communication and all that. And eventually trickles down. Of course, you must deliver a quality service. You must make the quality and stunning epoxy floors, because that is what is important, right? So regular touch points is what reinforces trust and expertise while demonstrating that you care about solving client problems. So they feel valued, and you need to realize in this current world, people just want to be valued, right? People want to be valued in all ways, even from the smallest points of following up on them and ensuring that you're engaging with them on a consistent basis. This shows that you guys care for them and that you're ready to solve, or rather you are hearing their problems, or rather you want to address their specific needs. So you're not just there to close sales. So this is what transforms one-time prospects into repeat clients. So today they 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 pay you 2K for an epoxy flooring garage. The next day they're calling you because you're consistent in your follow-up. You gave the quality epoxy floors. The next day they're calling you for a 10K commercial deal. Who knows whether they have an maybe a showroom, or a car garage, a showroom, yeah, basically a showroom somewhere, or maybe they have this uh, industrial project somewhere and they need the epoxy floor done. And in this case, this is basically a huge deal, a 10K deal. So they eventually ensure that you remain top of mind, right? But if you are not even consistent in your follow up, if you don't even show that you value them, even in following up and reaching out to them, they eventually lose trust. They eventually lose interest. The initial spark they had, once they saw your ad, the spark basically goes down to this level. And there's so many options, right? So apart from that, we are going to be looking at, we want to look at how overcoming the fear of being persistent really entails on, or what it really entails into, right? Follow up is helpful, not pushy, because you need to realize each touch point is an opportunity to provide clarity, or is an opportunity to provide clarity, answer questions, and demonstrate value to decision makers evaluating significant investments, right? So apart from that, we you also need to realize that as the epoxy flooring business, that hesitation means not yet, not no, right? Silence is not rejection. Common reasons for hesitation, most of them are simply uncertain about the costs. How much does the epoxy flooring uh, for my garage, how much will it cost me, right? Most of them still have doubts whether that floor is going to be durable, whether it's something that is just a cheapskate, or you guys are going to provide something that is valuable and something that has a longer lifespan, right? Some of them have doubts about the design options and general trust concerns about contractors, because maybe they went through a scammy phase maybe in the past, you never know. And so they are really skeptical whether you guys are actually going to give their best for such a high ticket deal. Remember, epoxy flooring job in itself is a high ticket epoxy is a high ticket uh, job basically. So you're not just dealing with cheap jobs basically, for lack of a better word. So we're also going to provide tactical solutions. I use epoxy flooring contractor. So I try to address concerns proactively with testimonials from satisfied clients. Try to showcase previous projects with before and after photos, and offer interactive tools to visualize epoxy finishes in their specific space. So once you are showing these guys the testimonials, once you are showing them the case studies and all that, you're basically reinforcing your trust. You're basically increasing you're lowering the trust deficit that is there within the market. At least they can know, if you're able to do this for this client, then this is what I'm going to be seeing on my garage, right? So that's just basically it. So on terms of building a strategic follow-up system, so on day one, you can have the initial follow-up. This is where you'll be sending a follow-up SMS, probably within 30 to 60 seconds, once a lead comes in the pipeline. And you must ensure multiple follow-ups in the later pipeline stages. So it's not only you following up on day one, as most over 50% of contractors do. You're ensuring that you're having multiple follow-ups in the later pipeline stages. Then you can have a check-in call on day three. Just try to call them directly or text to check in, answer questions, and offer probably additional information about material sort process, right? Then try to send them social proof, because just as I said, most of these guys will give you objections like, oh, okay, I need time, I need to think about it, I need to talk uh, to my wife, I need to talk to my husband and all that. So most of them just need social proof. And the only way you're going to ensure that social proof is built, ensure you blast them with so much, number one, educational content. Try to show them what really epoxy flooring is, because I can assure you that most homeowners actually, a lot, it's not every homeowner who knows what epoxy flooring is basically. They don't know it. So try to educate them, try to tell them the benefits, try to compare why epoxy flooring is better than having the regular floors basically, right? Or having hardwood or on the floors, right? trying to Trying to give them the benefits, right? And trying to show them why you are going to be giving them value as compared to your competitors. So email them with client testimonials, project visuals, showing them the projects you did for your past clients, the case that is relevant to their specific needs. And basically day 10, you can eventually address concerns. So as you can see, we're not just following up daily on a day-to-day basis, because this, as it was tied in the one of the common contractor fears. Most contractors will have fear being pushy, so they don't want to follow up on a day-to-day basis, right? So you can be having these gaps in terms of your following up. So you're following up on day one, and then the next time you're following up is on day three. The next time you're following up is on day six, giving them the social proof. The next time, day 10, right? At least these people are going to be okay. At least I can trust these guys. They're not really desperate or pushy in any way. So that they're not just running for my money and all that. They can address concerns, call them, email them, specifically addressing questions about pricing. Do you have issues with pricing? We can negotiate, we can give you financing options and all that. Give them a timeline, technical specifications about the material that you're going to be using, right? And then probably day 14, this is actually the final touch point. Now, this is the final follow up attempt where you're going to be transitioning to long-term nurturing plan, a long-term nurturing plan for future opportunities. So this final touch point is when you guys probably have met for the uh, meeting and all that. So apart from this, we're also going to be diversifying our communication channels. Here we'll be basically using calls for personal connection, emails for detailed information and visuals, text also, and quick reminders just to remind them of the meeting, the follow-up meeting that you guys were supposed to be having, basically to discuss on pricing, on how the flows are going to be done, and basically the processes in detail. And basically social media engagement to stay top of mind between major touch points. So in this case, you'll be sending them probably a link, or yeah, basically a link to your social media pages. It is from here maybe, or it is from here where they'll be seeing your testimonials, your how you manage to do it for your past, the projects that you basically completed and all that, project visuals and all that. So this basically just gets to reinforce the trust that is there, because in today's market the leads in today's market, the leads in today's market have this trust deficit because of the scammy issues that have been going on and all that, as far as online marketing is concerned, and even as far as online businesses are concerned, and even as far as you as the epoxy flooring business is concerned. So there's just this trust deficit that is there, whether you are able to do what you're claiming to portray from your ads, basically. So the common objections you as the epoxy flooring contractor gets to hear when you're meeting up with these epoxy flooring leads. Number one, too expensive. So when you hear such a common objection, the only way to kind of handle this, try and emphasize the investment of value and long-term benefits. So basically here it tells you trying to break down the cost per year over the flow's lifespan versus cheaper alternatives requiring frequent replacement. So you can try to show them why you stand out from your competitors, even in terms of the materials and how your process in itself works out, right? By this, they get to position you as a valuable epoxy flooring business as compared to the competitors. So even if you're charging them a 3K for an epoxy flooring garage, that another competitor would have charged them 2K, they understand why you're doing so, because the value you're giving them is far much, I don't know, far much even better, or far much higher. It's worth the investment, basically. That's just it. So if another common objection most epoxy flooring leads have is they need more time. So this is why you're going to be providing them additional information to facilitate decision making, right? Try to offer comparison guides. Try to provide them with financing options. Maybe some of them just they don't have the 2K at that moment. So try to give them installments. Try to offer financing options such as installments. Tell them, okay, this is a if the payment is a problem, then we can offer you an option of paying us in installments once the service is done, right? And then by this, later give them at least a benefit, uh, where or benefit or something that they can work with, right? And eventually scheduling flexibility to remove barriers. So apart from needing more time, this is something that I have I've been telling you guys. So you can also be sending them so much content, so much valuable content, be it within the landing page, sending them a link to your landing page, and if from the landing page they'll just be seeing this huge amount of testimonials and case studies from what we've been seeing. This is to reinforce the trust, because most of these guys, in their objection of needing more time, most of them just don't have trust whether you are going to be able to do a good job. So the only way to handle this is by telling them or showing them that it's not the first time you're doing this. We've been doing this in the past. We have been doing this for years. We've been doing this for majority of our clients in the past who are really happy with what we did, right? Just showing them the project visuals, the before and after, your past clients talking on a video how your company made such wonderful epoxy floors and all that. Definitely working this out. Another objection is cheaper competitor, right? So once you see them trying to compare you, or once you see them trying to involve the objection on price, trying to compare you with other competitors, compare apples to apples. Try to tell them, look, the kind of material quality we are using is not the same as what our competitors are using. The material quality we are using, or the materials that we are using, are far much better than what our competitors are using. Our competitors are only pricing you at cheaper options, but later the flaws that they're delivering are not actually going to stand out for a long time. But ours is about the value, from the materials we're using to the processes and the methods rather that we are using in terms of making this epoxy flooring is actually what makes us stand out, right? So basically try to distinguish yourself in terms of material quality, the preparation, the processes, the warranty coverage, and even the hidden costs, right? Educate them on value beyond initial price. So you're not just competing on price alone. We're not competing on price basically. We're trying to position ourselves as the valuable epoxy flooring business. So you're not competing on price with other businesses who are doing so. Yours is about value, the value that these guys are going to have in terms of even the lifespan of the floor, right? This one is really key. Now, preparation is key. This one is just something you can look into. Try and write responses in advance. Practice maybe delivery unit, build delivery until it feels natural, and role play with a team member or mentor to build confidence. This is something that you can decide to involve, or you can decide to include uh, within your sales team, and eventually this can also try and improve how you eventually handle these common objections with these prospects or with these clients. So how do we make follow-up a consistent habit? Audit your current process, evaluate current follow-up frequency and quality. How much or how many times are you following up, right? And to what intensity? And are your follow-ups really value driven, or you're just following up for the sake, right? So just as we said, we need to be ensuring that our follow-up is only tied to value. Our follow-up is only value driven, right? And try to do it on a consistent basis. Try to evaluate how many times should you be following a lead, and how many times should you be, and how should you be approaching the follow-ups basically, in terms of in as much as the customer reminder stage is concerned. And basically also try and identify gaps in your communication, set concrete goals for touch point quantity, and eventually review value provided in each interaction, right? Another way you can do this is try and create your follow-up playbook. Try and map interactions for the next 10 leads. Yeah, basically use a CRM, right? We need to be so organized uh, in this way, using a CRM and ensuring that you as the business owner gets to see where each lead is actually staged in within the pipeline, within the lead pipeline basically. So if a lead moves from a follow-up stage to a book a quote stage, it becomes really neat and progressive. And so you don't have to have this disorganized process, right, of trying to uh, remember who you're supposed to follow up on, trying to rely on a memory, trying to write uh, lists that are supposed to be followed up on sticky notes and all that. So it just becomes messy, and eventually it becomes inconsistent, and it eventually even trickles down to you losing thousands and thousands of revenue, because the cold leads tend to fall into the cracks, right? And your competitors who now have these professional follow-up systems take the advantage, right? Tailor your messages to client priorities only, and eventually include templates for common scenarios. So apart from this, the implementation strategy we're going to be having here, try to shift the focus. Epoxy contractors should spend their time installing floors. You can't be the marketer. You can't be the marketer and at the same time trying to be the follow-up guy, and the same time trying to be the technical guy. So you just need to focus on what you do best, and that is installing quality epoxy floors and managing jobs, not chasing messages, not reminders and callbacks. This is going to save you a lot of time and money and resources, and eventually ensuring that your business becomes profitable. So now, what basically changes with an AI appointment setting system? So basically, follow-up here is going to happen automatically the moment a lead comes in. So this is where the AI is going to ensure that within 30 to 60 seconds, it gets to respond to the leads that are coming in within the pipeline. So no more forgotten texts, no more missed emails or delayed responses. Every lead is contacted instantly and consistently 24/7. This the aspect of speed to lead, right? So that is why I told you, once this once you reach out to these guys within 30 to 60 seconds, the level of trust basically just goes up, way up, because they see you guys, they view you guys as so professional. And if they view you guys as professional, even from how you communicate to them, then they eventually trust you with their with their flaws. They eventually trust you with what they have, with their specific needs, right? Because it's actually you focusing on the small details is what actually eventually makes you more trustworthy on whether you can deliver the bigger specific needs or the bigger details, rather, in the within their business, right? Or in as much as your leads are concerned. Now, what the system handles for you: immediate response to new epoxy inquiries, right? The speed to lead 30 to 60 seconds, structured follow-up sequences across SMS and email, appointment booking directly into your calendar. So you don't have to be chasing messages, you don't have to be chasing leads. Every lead is directly forwarded with to your pipeline. And once a lead comes in, once the AI books the lead to an appointment or for an appointment, a message is directly sent to your phone. You'll be having the app to your phone. You'll be seeing lead so and so booked an appointment at this date and all that. So whilst you're focusing on the epoxy flooring job, you're already having a consistent flow of leads that are coming in. So you don't have to be manually chasing leads, manually calling leads, trying to be so desperate and all that. And apart from this, also lead qualification before you ever get on a call. So before you guys actually meet on the call, the AI ensures that it qualifies, highly qualifies the leads, and ensures that you're only working with high intent leads. So the AI is going to qualify the lead based on the pricing, whether they have the price, the project timeline, and eventually their specific needs, right? Now, what you focus on instead: showing up to pre-qualified appointments, closing 2 to 10K epoxy jobs with confidence, and delivering the quality installs, not admin work. Now, why this works better than manual follow-up? Number one, consistency beats memory. So you're not relying on your memory, trying to remember, I was supposed to reach out on lead so and so and all that. Speed beats competitors. Speed to lead is what is going to give you the competitive edge. Systems will always beat willpower, and the contractors who win aren't working even harder. They've removed follow-up from their mental load. Now, I'm just trying to give you an action plan for today. List your objections. Try and document the top objections you hear from prospects and craft compelling responses. And this can be easily done, right? We have AI, so try and list the top objections. Try and give AI, send to cloud or send to ChatGPT, and try and tell ChatGPT, try and give me a compelling response on how, based on the objections that I have, and eventually ChatGPT or cloud is going to give you the best compelling responses that you can later eventually just try and practice or try and rehearse before you get on these calls with these leads, right? So it's basically easy. You don't have to waste a lot of time in trying to craft it manually and all that. Map your touch points. Create a 5 to 7 touch point sequence for every new lead entering your pipeline. Apart from that, reach out immediately. Start implementing your follow-up system with current prospects today, and eventually track and refine. So basically here is just about monitoring interactions, try and measure results, track your data, basically. Track the leads that are coming in and continuously improve your approach. So guys, without much further ado, and without saying much, we need to realize, and just as a closing remark, success always and will always come from consistency, not you being perfect. So it's the small intentional efforts in follow-up that compound into major results. So increased close rates, stable revenue, stronger client relationships, and reduced stress from feast or famine cycles, having this vicious cycle of trying to follow up with leads and all that. It only awaits those who commit to systematic follow-up, having the proper professional follow-up systems within the business. That's just it for today's video. So if you probably feel this is kind of hectic to kind of implement within your business, I'll leave a link down the description. Do book a call with me. We'll get to see if this is a good fit. We'll get to have a call and try and see how your business works and try and implement the gaps within the business, and eventually try to see if this is a good fit. Yeah, that's just it for this video. Hope you guys got so much value. Otherwise, see you next time. Thanks.